All right, welcome to another episode of the BRSTEM podcast, Our Children Need Roots and Wing. For today's episode, we have a young lady as our guest who's going to share some information about a vision that she believes that God has given her. I first met her when BRSTEM was doing work in the Baker school system. And so we will get into that a little bit more, but she kind of gained a reputation for harassing me. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later. So, Ms. Jones, if you could go ahead and share with our audience a little bit about yourself, some of your background, so we can begin this conversation about this vision that you believe God has given you.
Yes, my name is Corinthia Lee Jones. I have my bachelor's in social work. I'm currently right now getting my master's in social work, and I am also an educator. And so right now I am building up an empire called Grace Haven. It's a nonprofit organization. It's a 501c3. It's 501c3. And so our ultimate goal is to get a group home for children and youth who need additional love and support, who probably don't get it at home or don't get it anywhere. Like I said, I'm in education, so I see a lot in the school system that kids are missing that additional support that they need. They're missing that person that's pushing them constantly, and they're not receiving the adequate support they need at home. They're not receiving the love they need at home. They're not receiving the "you can do it," the high fives, just the little things that kids and youth need because I teach 7th, 8th, and 12th, and I can tell you my 12th graders just need just as much as my 8th graders, and so that's what Grace Haven is all about. It's about providing, like, a home-like environment with structure and love for these babies who still need it.
Uh, every great founder has a day one story that was a specific moment or conversation that made them say, uh, this is what I have to do. This is my purpose. And so what was that conversation, that moment that made you say, I have to build Grace Haven?
The moment in the conversation for me was actually working at Baker. Just seeing a lot of the kids in my position at Baker was a para, and I felt like I was so limited to what I can do as a paraprofessional. It inspired me to go into education, and become a teacher, and seeing that I'm a teacher now, I still feel limited to what I can do and say in the classroom. So that really, wow, this needs to happen moment started in Baker. Um, I had a student that was facing some challenges, and it turns out that student was in a group home as well. And he wasn't receiving the additional love and support that he needed. It was just a place. It was a place, but it wasn't home for him. And that really stuck with me because if you're coming to school and you feel like you're not getting enough love at school and you're getting picked on at school and you go home and you kind of feel like you're in the same situation, where does your relief come from? Where do you take your this is what I your decompression moment? So that's what birthed the idea of Grace Haven.
So the name itself, tell me about where the name came from. Because it seems authentic.
Yes, Grace Haven. So everyone knows a haven is a safe place. And that's what your home is. Your home is your safe place. And a lot of the kids that I know that Grace Haven will encounter are kids who need grace. A lot of kids children are children, and we have to realize that we can't hold grudges against them. We need to change our attitude when we wake up in the morning. When we wake up in the morning, it's a brand new day. It's a clean slate. I don't care if the child is 18. I don't care if the child is 2 years old. When they wake up the next morning, what they did was in the past. And so, grace, we need to show these kids grace, and we also need to provide them a safe haven for them. Provide a safe haven as well. So Grace Haven pretty much birthed itself by the name.
So let's back up a little bit. What part of the Bedford area that you grew up in?
What part did I grow up in?
Yeah,
Zachary.
Zach. And so what was your experience like as a young person growing up in Zach?
My experience growing up in Zachary was it was a tight-knit community, and it's crazy that you just asked this because I had this conversation with my husband yesterday, and I was telling him about someone that I went to school with, and he was like, "Oh, you remember their first and last name?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've been going to school with them since I was in kindergarten." He's like, "I've never heard of that. Going to school with somebody since kindergarten and graduating with them." I was like, "Yeah, Zachary was a very close-knit community, and just going to Zachary, everybody was friends with everybody. We all experienced some of our shared challenges, whether it was bullying or things like that, but Zachary was almost like a safe haven as well."
And so what since you've been in education, like, what school district or school communities have you had worked in?
I have worked in Baker, I've worked in charter school, particularly Geo Prep Mid-City, and I am in EBR at Northeast now.
Okay. And so I asked that question because I wanna understand, how would you compare, like, your experience, growing up, uh, with respect from an education standpoint?
It's completely different. It's
How so?
completely different. So this is what I mean by I'm very limited about what I can say in the classroom. Um, the lack of effort. So me going to Zachary schools, um, trying wasn't an option. I had to try. Me going to school and just sitting in the classroom wasn't participation. That was just a warm body in a seat. And from what I've experienced working in schools such as Baker and EBR, we are okay as long as the child is content in a seat. They're not causing a disruption. They can do whatever they want to do. But at Zachary, we were required to learn. I feel like in EBR, we require these kids to just be a warm body in a chair. And if they're not making our life difficult, they're an honor roll student.
And so I guess my question is, because I mean, obviously, we have a lot of talent going on in our community
Mhm,
across school districts. We all can recognize that things have changed versus the
mhm.
way they were when we were growing up. And
Yes.
so my question is, because we'll get back to red tape, but within our education structure itself as it stands, like, do you feel like there's room for us to make change?
I feel like there's definitely always room, for changes. Um, my principal, shout out to Miss Shawana Ross, always says like our goal is to grow these babies. We have to grow them. And so for me, I think, yeah, academically wise, we have to grow them. But what about on a mental level, on a physical level? How are we gonna grow them mentally? And I know this is just sidetracked. I NJ campus, which is how we take our attendance and roll and stuff. They just implemented goals for each student. And I have one in particular student that their goal is to get an unsatisfactory. And I'm like, that's a goal?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Their goal is to get an unsat on their leak test. And I was like, that's a goal to get an unsat? And so I did some further research. I'm like, okay, this student had a low onset on their last lead. So our goal is to get them a higher onset. And so in my opinion, and in my opinion, growth is growth. It's gonna happen little by it can happen little by little by little by little. However, if we telling a kid you're gonna make an unsack this year. What happens if that kid wants to make a mastery? What happens if that kid wants to make an advance? We're limiting that kid. They're getting growth. They're growing.
Okay. And I hear you, and I agree with you. But oftentimes, over uh, I guess over the course of my life being engaged, the school system, volunteering, whatever it takes me to going to community meetings, just different things that I've been doing and been involved in.
Mhm,
Uh, Topics like what you just laid out come up. I often hear, literally people excusing that and saying that, we're expecting too much.
mhm.
And so if somebody gave you that as pushback, what would be your response? And they tell you that you're being unrealistic. What is your response?
I'm gonna tell you exactly what my, 4th grade teacher told me. She told me to shoot for the moon.
Okay.
Shoot for the moon. Why am I shooting for the moon? Because maybe the moon is unrealistic for me. However, if I shoot for the moon and I miss, I'm gonna land amongst the stars. She told me, "Shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you will land amongst the stars." And so, they say we have unrealistic expectations for these kids. So, my thing of it is, if we're just saying you can only grow this much, and this is I'm gonna give a real life example for me as well. We're saying that only you can grow this much. Um we can't say what another person is fully capable of. When they put their mind to something, they can do exceedingly and abundantly things. And I feel like it's just not up to us, not up to us as educators, not up to us as principals, not up to us as paras, anybody in the school system to say what a kid can and cannot do. And I can see being in the education system why we may feel that way, but I truly feel like if a kid has the right motivation to do something, they're gonna do it. And back to what I was gonna say about the real life example was myself. Um, in 2022, uh, I believe it was 2022, I met you at Park Ridge,
Yeah.
and I was so upset. I don't know who I thought I was without having a degree, and I wanted to be a full-time teacher. And I love Dr. Matthews so much. I applied to be a teacher with no degree whatsoever, and I did not get hired. And I cried and I cried. I just didn't comprehend. I'm like, I'm amazing, but why can't I get a teaching position? It's just that I wasn't qualified and I did not have the right credentials to do so. So that right there gave me the motivation and the determination that I needed to do to enroll myself into school. I told my enrollment counselor that I said, "I'm gonna be done with my degree in 2 years." And she
Okay.
said, "What?" I said, "I'm gonna be done with my degree in 2 years." She said, "Okay. I've never heard of that, but okay, I don't think that's possible." So when I tell you I went through hoops and hurdles, I doubled up on my classes. I took classes from other places and I was done with my degree, a 4-year degree by August of 2024.
Okay.
And that's why I say whenever a person puts their mind to something, or whenever a person is limited and told that they can't do something, like a little kid in the candy store, you told me you can't have it, I'm gonna show you I can have it. So I feel like with the right motivating factors, we don't know what these kids are capable of. And at the end of the day, I wouldn't want to push a kid to a higher unset if they're gonna be the future leaders of tomorrow.
So look, let me go back. I want to go back to something you said about, and how you said, but you said something that I know comes from it. And so, what I need you to do right now uh, is kind of tell me like where that foundation comes from. It was a
Well,
scripture that you quoted part in your
exceedingly and
curriculum.
abundantly,
There you go. There you. So
exceeding
talk to me about your foundation in that respect.
my foundation is rooted in God. I am a proud member of Rose Hill Church in Baker, Louisiana. That is my second home.
Woo,
I'm there.
that's the third shout out you gave to somebody.
Really? Well, look, they real shout
Your
outs,
principal, your
but
former principal, and not your church.
now my church, and particularly my pastors, my elders, I'm super thankful for them because when I tell you, I was I was go sitting on the first pew of the church and just thinking that being a warm body like these people in the school system feel and school systems feel like these kids are not retaining any information. But it wasn't until I got into that church where I started seeking spiritual growth. So I'm super thankful for my pastor, Danny Donaldson, who has lit a fire in me to get in my word, who breaks it down to where I can understand something. And so I'm just super thankful for that church. That I'm rooted in Christ. I can only do things through Christ.
Right. Um, I'll make a quick little segue. And so like we shared, like we first met working at Park Ridge at the Beck School
Mhm.
System. But recently, and I wasn't off for that TikTok stuff, but then recently I started posting stuff on TikTok, and then that's how I came back across you. And so when we were talking the other day, uh, I think I called you a social media celebrity, and you were like, "I'm not no social media." So, but you got some pretty cool TikTok videos. So can you talk to me about that and why you've been doing that and how that's been going for you?
Okay, so I do have a pretty cool selection of TikTok videos. However, it's not anything that is consistent. I feel like I can be way better at social media and TikTok posting if I am more consistent with it. Like my pastor said, Pastor Danny Donaldson, we are 1/3, some of us are 1/30th of who we should be. We start stuff and don't stick to it. We start so many things and don't stick to it. And so we start stuff and don't stick to it. We started a diet 2 years ago, but we still over here the same pant size. We just started this business 2 years ago, but we still left it over here. We done started so many things and not sticking to them. And so that's one thing with me with my social media. I have to learn to be consistent. I have to learn to be consistent with my posting. And now I have the Grace Haven 225 page, so making sure that I'm consistently posting on my personal, TikTok as well as my Grace Haven 225.
Uh, so let's go back to Grace Haven. So I know we'll get to this, but I know kind of the long term vision
Mhm,
uh, like you alluded to earlier, was to have a group home, a place.
mhm.
Talk to us about because I understand like you're in the process of getting this evolved and growing it. And so talk to us about the activities that you are currently doing as you are
The cur
working to build.
the current activities that we're doing right now, so we have developmental play, and most people are like, "What is developmental play?" A lot of kids don't get diagnosed with autism until they get into the school system because they're often told, "Well, they're too early, they'll grow out of it." And when they get into the school system, they're not they're not getting their diagnosis right away because we often mislabel them as bad kids or kids who just don't want to work, and they have a condition where they aren't able to do so. And so what developmental play is we look at the age that a child is and we see the things that they should be doing. And we can say, hey, your child is on target, or hey, we may need to write a letter of recommendation to your pediatrician to see what we can do to get this child where they need to be. Um I'm still getting my master's in social work, so I can only observe your child, a
Uh,
child, and I can't fully diagnose that your kid has a developmental delay, but I can say they're not on target, or maybe they are lacking in a few areas. So I can write you a letter of recommendation to your doctor and just say a referral to your doctor and say, hey, my name is Corinthia. This is what I've observed. I am a registered social worker. Let's look into getting Susie checked out and evaluated by the proper psychiatrist. We also have tutoring. Tutoring, I have been told in multiple school systems that we do not give homework. We do not give homework. Why don't we give homework, Mr. Lewis?
I don't know.
We don't give homework because the students are not going to do it. And if the students are not going to do it, what's going to happen? They're going to get a 0, and it's going to cause their grade to go down.
Okay,
So
so
right
okay,
there.
so stop right. And maybe
Mhm.
you feel it, but the way I look at that, maybe I'm being unreasonable, but the way I look at that is in life, whether it be a job or whatever the case, if you're given a task and you don't do it, you don't stop requiring to do that task. On a
Mhm.
job, you can get fired for that task. So what?
Exactly.
And I've heard that before, but I need you to help me understand the rationale
You want me to help you understand the rationale of some instructions that was given to me.
because I'm lost. I'm confused.
I'm lost and I'm confused about that as well. So that's why we have tutoring because I know all schools and all school systems don't give students homework because they're simply just not going to do it. The kids are not going to do it. Um I don't know if you noticed this major shift from paper to Chromebook in the school
Yeah,
system.
yeah.
There's a big major shift between paper to Chromebook in the school system. A lot of the student work is on the computer. So maybe that's a possible reason of why we're not giving students homework because they may not have access to it. They may not have access to it. So that's a possible reason that we are not giving homework. However, I feel like the students are not going to retain the information if they're not going over it at home. I can go home. You can tell me today that Susie picked the apple off the green tree, and I'll come to you tomorrow and ask you who is Susie and why was she picking the apple off of a tree? Because I'm not retaining the information. So I feel like homework is very important. It's very needed because if we're enforcing something at school, we need to go home and reinforce it so we can gain what?
Tell me, because I'm still stuck on this not getting homework.
We don't wanna regress the information that we have already gained, so we need to have homework to reinforce it. So that's why Grace Haven has tutoring. So we're looking at what students are getting for, homework, going over it with them, um, practicing, just seeing what modules they're in, because a lot of the kids are using Eureka Math and just finding information that closely aligns with that standard and helping them break down the standard and going over that with them.
Let me
And
sh
we
I just wanna share something with you, and again, I think even because again, it's not like it had hurt before,
Okay.
but this goes back to the conversation we had earlier about progressing, uh, in the scores on week. I think my mindset has always been kind of what I said earlier, is if you give an expectation or you give a task, and that means you expect. And so one of the things that we did, and maybe this will help some educators and school leaders or whatnot, I don't know. But one of the things that we did at school was there was homework every day.
Uh-huh.
And, it wasn't like 4 or 5 hours, but like at least the four core subjects of English, math, science, and social studies were expected to give homework every day. And so there was a couple of different things that we did. Now, our school was extended day. And so kind of like what they were doing at Park Ridge, was there was a block. Uh, like y'all were doing like intervention because the reality is that in some situations they may not necessarily have the support at home to reinforce what's going on at school. They're ensuring they're doing it or giving them the assistance. So they had because we didn't get out of school until like 4:30, 5 o'clock. So they had a window at the end of the day to actually be able to do their home. So for us, there was no excuse for you not to get your home.
Yeah, because you can do it at school.
Yeah. And so in those instances where kids were not doing their homework, what would happen is on the next day there would be, rewards and consequences. And so we had what we would call recess lunch for kids that got their homework done, and kids that did not get their homework done, they would have detention lunch, uh, which would give them a time to either
We did.
do the homework or, there was like some type of reflection sheet that they would have to write during lunchtime. With the idea or the hope that they understand that this is an expectation. And so, so I don't want it to come across that, again, what's going on in our community with our kids as they grow older. I just think it's very, very important that we set expectations and that we hold that we hold young kids and young people accountable for the expectations that we set. So I just want
Yes. This is gonna piggyback on why I feel like Grace Haven is so needed in our community because we're gonna get into the long term goals of Grace Haven in a little bit, but I feel like we're stuck in a cycle because us as parents are showing our kids what's okay and what's acceptable. So when I have a parent, I'm calling a parent about a child not completing a homework assignment and they're upset and because I called and have woken them up from their nap. That's what we're showing our kids,
Okay.
that
I hear you. I hear you. Finish the story though, but I hear you.
yes.
So, all right. And so in that, what I'm understanding is some of these challenges that are gap Grace Haven, even now in these early stages, is doing things and carrying out activities to kind of help fill those gaps. But let's talk about going from tutoring and some of these other activities that you talked about to ultimately like where you're trying to get with Grace Haven.
Yes, and so with Ed Tutoring, we have a mentorship program that's just showing kids like, hey, I still care about you. Like, I can't take you home, but look, I want to be that positive person in your life that's gonna push you to be the best that you can be. So that's what our mentoring program is. It's just essentially almost like a big buddy system, where you are partnered with a particular person who genuinely cares for you, is gonna be there. They're gonna show up at your functions. They're gonna show up for you and just be the positive impact that we need. Um, One of my favorite and probably one of yours is our STEM program
Why is it that they
because so I am not a sciencey math person at all, but I feel like STEM is very needed in our community. And why do I feel like STEM is needed in our community? A lot of kids are back to what we're saying, are limited. They're limited, and they don't have the proper resources they need, to sustain. So, they often learn survival over growth. And so what I feel like the STEM program is perfect for is showing kids that you don't have to always choose survival over growth. You can always grow into who you want to be. A lot of you will never know what you're good at unless you go out there and do it. So what if I'm good at science and I'm just at school learning about uh Newton's laws of motion and not actually conducting science experiments, I'm gonna hate science. But if I'm more hands-on and actually mixing chemicals and seeing what I'm really good at, maybe this is for me. Or with math, like I can't even give you a scenario. I'm sorry, but the engineering and the agriculture. And I'm super excited because I'm taking some of my kids to Muse Farms, and
okay?
they're just gonna be able to see the different things that they're gonna be that they can do. Just like they might find a knack for farming, they might find like a little knack for different science things. So we don't know who these kids are or what they will like if we don't expose them to different things. So that's why I'm so big on STEM.
What's up, Roots and Wings family? We talk a lot on the show about giving our youth the roots to stay grounded and the wings to fly toward a college degree. Well, this February, we're adding a little bit of fuel to that fire. Most people think that chemistry is just something you suffer through in high school textbooks. But I'm here to tell you, chemistry is power. It's the energy in a game-winning sprint, the fuel in a rocket, and the secret behind the world's most advanced tech. And we want our young leaders to have their hands on it. We are officially kicking off our Saturday STEM sessions, Chemical Reactions Edition. We're getting out of the classroom and into the community to show our kids that they don't have to wait to college to start thinking like scientists. Saturday, February 14th, we'll be at the Cadillac Street Park. Saturday, February 21st, we're taking the lab to North Street. Both sessions are about hands-on, high-energy science. We're talking about exothermic reactions, molecular bonds, and things that go boom, safely, of course. But here's the thing, this isn't just playtime. When your student joins us at the park, they aren't just kids at a park. They are junior engineers. They are future doctors. They are the leaders who are going to solve the energy and health crisis of the next generation. We're building a mindset today that gets them the scholarships tomorrow. If you want your child to see themselves as a leader in STEM, you need to be there. Cadillac Street Park on the 14th, North Street on the 21st. Let's show them that their potential is limitless and their future is bright.
You said something a second ago. I think you said survival over succeeding,
I said a lot of kids learn survival over growth.
survival over growth. Talk to me more about that.
Okay, so that goes back to saying that kids are limited. They're limited. We're only giving them limited resources. And so eventually with so much limitation, they're going to learn survival mode. And this is funny. And I'm gonna just give you this analogy. I'm terrified of dogs. I have a doctor's note. Terrified, phobia, diagnosed phobia.
I'm
Um,
sorry for laughing, but you would laugh.
diagnosed phobia. I keep it on my phone at all times. At all times. And signed by my doctor. Doc diagnosed phobia. And so and so if a dog approaches me, I'm gonna go into survival mode and I'm gonna run. I'm gonna forget about everything that I'm doing and I'm gonna run. I'm in survival mode. And so I feel like a lot of these kids are stuck in survival mode. They have limited resources. They don't get the proper love that they need at home. Some of them don't get proper meals. They don't have proper clothing. So they just know how to survive. They know how to get themselves to another day. So we focusing on getting ourselves to another day. How are we gonna eventually grow? we are can can we're stuck in a cycle, and we're teaching our kids how to survive at this point because we learned how to survive, and our kids are going to teach their kids how to survive and not how to grow, not how to be the best version of themselves. That's why I said my pastor said some of us are only 1/10 of who we should be, or some of us are only 1/30th of who we should be because we started so many things and we never complete them because we're stuck in the cycle of survival over growth.
All right. So, look, let's do this. I got a series of questions.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Okay.
All right. So, I know I still feel like you're a celebrity. So, if there was a theme song for you, a great Satan, like kind of like walk up music or walk in music, what would be the theme song that would play every time the doors of Great Saving open, or every time you had an event?
Brighter Day by Kirk Franklin.
Can you sing it?
I never knew life could be so happy. I never knew I'd be so secure.
Okay, okay, okay. You took that. Okay, all
You
right,
thought I was gonna be shy?
all right. So you know you're a CEO. Okay. So what is your CEO superpower? That one skill that keeps the wheels turning. That one skill that you feel like God has given you that's gonna make Great Haven successful.
My motivation and my determination to get it done.
Okay, talk.
An example, with our literacy program, I have Chick-fil-A promised me coupons for the first 20 kids to read 20 books. And I've been calling Chick-fil-A every day. I've learned the lady's name. Her name is Christina. We know each other very well from a phone conversation because I'm determined to have something. I'm determined to get these kids incentives to read, to learn how to read, and not necessarily just saying they have to read books. But with the youngest child we have is 2 years old, and just getting him comfortable with speaking and identifying objects and identifying letters. Um, those incentives, I know those incentives that are gonna be provided by Chick-fil-A, I know they are gonna be super appreciative for them. So, I have the determination, I have the drive to get that done for my babies, and also just to see them become a better version of themselves because I know the vision that God has given me for Grace Haven, that alone is motivation for me. I
Okay.
like my my pastor said, when we don't look at people in their seed form. We look at them as how God sees us, because God doesn't see us in our seed form. He looks at us as the woman of God and the man of God He's already called us to be. So I'm looking at Grace Haven and the woman of God the woman of God who God has called her to be. I'm looking at these children as the women and men of God who God had called them to be.
Okay. Um, so my next question is, if you could describe the future of Grace Haven in only 3 words, what would it be?
Impactful, powerful, nurturing.
And then this is kind of a twist though.
Can
What
I change
is the
the word?
Sit. Go ahead.
Impactful and powerful is kind of like the same thing.
Okay.
Impactful, successful, and nurturing.
Okay. So this last one, uh, in this little lightning round, it's kind of a twist. What's the best advice that you have gotten from a student?
The best advice I have gotten from a student, education-wise, like in the school system or within Grace Haven?
Just dip.
The best advice I got from a student, it was when other people are being other people, that doesn't I should still smile. I
Say
had to
that one
still
more time.
when other people are still being other people, when other people are being mean,
Okay.
that's not an excuse for me not to be smiling, because I don't know if you notice, and I smile with every little thing. I've been talking in my head about 15 times to myself, girl, stop smiling, because I'm smiling constantly. And so that's the best advice I've ever gotten from a student, was to not don't stop smiling because another person is bitter, or don't stop smiling because that's that's who I am. I'm a smiling, happy person, so I'm gonna keep a smile on my face. That's the best advice I've ever received from a student.
A lot of times, when we're starting, just some initiatives that we want to start, and this is some advice that I've got. Obviously, we should do our research, things of that nature. But one of the things that oftentimes we fail to do is identify a mentor. And so that's whether it's somebody that we actually sit with or somebody that we can model. And I don't necessarily also always have like a tangible mentor that I can touch, but I always lean on whether it's reading their autobiography or reading a biography about them. And so, and I probably want to spend a little bit of time on this because I think it's important. So as you sit here today, do you have a current mentor? And then the second question is, outside of that individual, do you have somebody that you aspire to?
Um, being honest, within Baton Rouge, I don't per se have a mentor, but there's a couple of people in this area that I see different qualities and attributes that I like separately, which kind of form me as a whole, that I would like, if that makes sense. Okay, so one is this lady, Miss Kawana. She actually owns a group home. And she's so involved. She's so involved in her group home. She's so there for her kids. She knows everything about them. They love her. She's their family. And that is exactly how I want Grace Haven to be. Um, Ultimately, I don't want to be the executive manager of Grace Haven. I would really love to get someone in there who is trained with trauma informed care to really be an assistance of these kids. However, I always want to be there. I want to be the additional support that these kids need. I want to be there to give love and support. I want these kids not to look at me and almost feel like mommy's coming home, because I'm there all the time and they're treated just like my family. And that's one thing I can say that she does. She treats her kids like her family, and she does not her kids. And there's another lady as well, and I don't believe she owns a group home. However, I believe she's a foster parent,
Okay.
and she calls her kids, those are her children. The black one is hers, the white one is hers, the Hispanic one is hers. Those are her babies. I'm just so thankful that people with kind hearts still do that. People who are nice still exist today to take care of a big responsibility like that. So those are some 2 attributes within Baton Rouge that I look forward to, and there's one more I look up to, and the second one would definitely be third one would definitely be my pastor's wife.
Okay.
And I don't think she has anything to do with the, group home at all. However, she is just, like, very professional and very mild-mannered. She embodies, like, everything that a woman should be, and I want to be that soft girl. I would love to tap into my soft girl era,
Okay. Now let
just
me tell
like
you the
that.
reason why I asked this. It's a few reasons why I asked. So one, uh, several years ago when I started, you know, uh, one of my businesses, one of the things that I did, like I had gone to LSU for the MBA program, and after I finished my master's in business administration, like one of the things that I took away from the program was what I was sharing about, the importance of doing research. I started doing a lot of research. And so there are three, I guess, business leaders whose autobiographies that I found and spent a lot of time reading. So one was Bob Johnson, who's the founder of Black Entertainment Television. One was Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart, and then one was Jack Welch, who was CEO of General Electric, several years ago. So there's a lot of different nuggets that I got from them. But one of the things that always stick to me about Sam Walton is, and I don't know that a lot of people know this. And so when he was starting Walmart, there used to be things called like five and dime school. There used to be a ton of 'em. And so there was one big one, I forget the name of it, but he literally would go in the different locations of the store and walk through and just kind of see the things that they did. And, some people might call it stealing their ideas, but what he was doing was just trying to understand how they operated and looking for ways that he could improve on the things that they were doing.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of times, like that is really a good practice. Like as a part of our fellowship program, we've been and visited different schools, kicked tires, sat in on classes, talked to the school leaders, everything that was involved with running the school. Like we literally studied in an effort to make sure that we were developing a school that was top notch. And so I just think that's a really great practice to have. Uh, because at the end of the day, especially when we're talking about dealing with young people, dealing with kids,
Yeah.
they're not commodities. And there's enough challenges going on and enough things that we need to be fixing and resolving that we need to be trying to find the best practices so that our kids can live the lives that we all want to see them live. And you're pouring in everything that you possibly can into Grace Hate. And so we're going to kind of shift gears a little bit. So we kind of prepare to wrap up. Um, one of the things, so the theme of our podcast is our children need roots. And so I kind of want to explain like where that comes from. We kind of leaned into some of it a little bit earlier in our conversation, but I do want to go back to that. Uh, and so we talked about roots and we. So the roots piece is about providing our children with a solid foundation that keeps them grounded. And then the wings piece is using that foundation to allow them to be able to soar and to reach, their ultimate potential, even beyond what they even think is possible.
The foundation and the root of Grace Haven. So I'm going to say the foundation and the root of Grace Haven is the services that Grace Haven is providing now and will provide in the future. Because the services that Grace Haven provides, they're not only preventative services, they're restorative services. And what I mean by that is if we constantly keep our mind going, if we're constantly engaged in something else, if we constantly have somebody checking in on us and doing different things, we're not gonna have time to worry about what Tom, Dick, and Harry is doing. we focusing on us. We're focusing on growing us. And what I mean by preventative and restorative services are preventative services, keeping these kids focused on things that their mind can just keeping them focused on academics and personal growth rather than things that the community say they should be doing. And restorative, shifting them, showing them, hey, there's a way better life than the life that you have been shown. Let me show you some things that we can do to get you on the right track, if that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. And then, so for the wing speed, like if you had a child that's a part of your program, like what's your aspiration for?
What's my aspiration for that child?
Yes.
My aspiration for that child is for that child to get a sense of who they are. And I keep piggybacking off of love and support. Um, have you ever seen Clifford Puppy Days?
Have you ever seen who?
Clifford Puppy Days.
No. I've seen
There's a
Clifford the Big Red Dog.
Okay, so Clifford Puppy Days is a show piggybacked off of Clifford the Big Red Dog. It's like a
Okay.
spinoff. It's like when Clifford was a puppy. In
Okay.
the theme song, it says, "Love makes little things grow," and I feel like with Grace Haven, everything before any preventative service or restorative service, we have to have love because without love, we're not going to grow. Our heart can be so hard and so stuck that nothing can penetrate it. Just like the Bible verse in Matthew about the seeds that couldn't get stuck in the soil so it didn't produce fruit or anything like that. So without love, our hearts are gonna stay hardened. So it doesn't matter what we poured into somebody. Without love, they're not gonna grow. They're gonna stay exactly who they are. They've already learned who they are and who they should become. But without giving them love and support, they're gonna stay who they are, who they've been told they should be, and they're gonna stay the predetermined person that their parents and their community said they are.
So this is kind of similar to the question I asked earlier, but I know you feel it. But what's one message that you want to leave to a young person out there that feels like their current circumstances define it? So it could be
Feel
a
like that
student, like one of your current students, or a child that you're working through with day saving. And I know, because a lot of times kids feel like that. And so how do you help it?
their current circumstance does not determine their future. That's very hard because depending on what their current circumstance is, um, I'll be the first person to tell you, like, hey, that's hard. And I know that sucks. But until I've actually walked through those shoes, I can't tell you anything. However, what I can tell you, um, right now is that with a person like me in your corner or with the right person in your corner who's willing to go to bat for you, there's nothing that you can come out of. And a lot of these kids are stuck in so many challenging situations. And I particularly had a student before who would miss school because they had to watch their little brothers and sisters and take care of them. And so piggybacking off what you just asked me would be to identify who you are now and what do you want, who do you want to be?
I want to thank you for the conversation. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot. And I also want to tell you that I'm proud of. Uh, so again, we both know that our kids face a lot of challenges, and so it's just great to have you out there making an effort. Pray that God continues to bless the work that you have set your hands.